Hi, it's me, Creaky.
So most of you recognize this. This is Devil's Tower, and they will usually tell us that this was a formation that happened from a volcano. And there are a lot of people who believe that this is a giant tree stump. And you have to think to yourself, well, if that's a giant tree stump, who cut that down? Now, there are others, like Roger from Mud Fossil University, who believe that this is actually an ankle from a giant.
What? Tidy.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today's Question the Narrative video is called Trees, Titans, or Melted Buildings.
Or, and this is just me thinking out loud, a national monument located in Crook County, Wyoming.
Because those are three explanations that we see here in this truth community when we are trying to explain what some of the larger formations that we see are.
Why is there a need for an alternative? Is it maybe because the actual explanation doesn't fit in with your silly little narrative? And by the way, using Roger from Mud Fossil University as a citation probably isn't adding anything to your credibility.
Now, a lot of times I'm showing buildings on my channel because I think that they're beautiful. But I have also been really interested in rock formations, in trees, just the things around us. Because as my eyes have been opened, I have realized that things just aren't as they seem to be.
You're quite right. Sometimes things aren't what they seem to be, but that's no reason to claim things like giant tree stumps. Devil's Tower rises 1,267 feet above the Bella Forte River to an altitude of 5,112 feet. The tower measures 800 feet at the base and tapers up to a width of 300 feet at the top. Do you understand how big that tree would have had to have been to leave a stump that enormous? Really big.
A lot of times when I show things on my channel, pictures that I take while I'm out with my kids,
people laugh.
I will get lots of varying opinions on them. For example, this right here, I have been told looks like a giant tree to some people. And I will admit that when I was there, I did say that it looked like petrified wood.
I bet people do laugh though. And it looks like some rock sticking out of the ground to me, but I'm just a simple, straightforward guy. I say what I see. And like most people, I do not see a giant tree. Not even if I squint. And do you know why I don't see a giant tree in this picture? Because there isn't one!
What I do is I've been trying not to put all of my eggs in one basket. This is just it feels like a rock and it's as heavy as a rock, but to me it looked like petrified wood.
Feels like a rock. It's as heavy as a rock. And I'm going to add that it looks like a rock, which clearly makes it not a rock. Makes it petrified wood, which is a thing, and it forms when fallen trees get washed down a river and buried under layers of mud, ash from volcanoes, and other materials. And over millions of years, the minerals crystallize within the wood's cellular structure, forming a stone-like material known as petrified wood. So stone-like, not actual stone. Plus, if you add to that the biggest tree ever recorded was the General Sherman tree, standing at 279 feet and is dated at about 2,700 years old, where are you getting the information from on these trees that would have been needed to have been tens of thousands of feet tall from?
Some rocks that I found in a stream that look an awful lot like petrified wood to me, which, kind of coincides with the theory that
you're an idiot?
Rocks are old trees.
That rocks are old trees. Sorry.
Everything that is big, like all big mountains, were trees. And I don't want to say all big mountains or formations were once melted buildings, or they were all titans.
Stop saying it then.
I think that it's safe to say that it could be a variety of these things. It may not even be any of these things.
Well, that's right. It's an igneous rock, meaning it was formed as magma or lava cooled.
But it certainly does look to me like all of those things are included in our environment and we just have been lied to about them.
Yeah, we've been lied to. By who? And for what possible reason? Even if giant trees ever actually existed, and I'm talking about trees that are big enough to have a 5,000-foot stump. Don't you think that every biologist would be freaking out with excitement? Of course you don't. You think they would be hiding them from us in plain sight, but hiding them because, well, I have no idea why. But I bet the Illuminati are involved, and that Bill Gates guy. I bet he's got something to do with it.
Now, there are others, like Roger from Mud Fossil University, who believe that this is actually an ankle from a giant.
Well, if Roger said it, then it must be true, because everyone knows that Roger is the undisputed king of rock biology, and Devil's Tower being a giant ankle is a lot more likely than it being a really old giant tree stump. And you were wondering who cut down a tree that big. Well, I'm wondering who the hell cut the giant's foot off, and with what? Or did the giant tree fall on his leg and snap it off? These are the sorts of questions that us debunkers / point and laugh channels need to know.
Now, I believe there's a video called, I think it's There Are No Forests on Flat Earth. I think that's what it's called. But it shows lots of really good examples of what we see as typically mountains or mesas, and that they really do look like huge ancient trees.
Well, that may be the case, but they're not. I've seen that video. It's just as stupid as this one, which is what you'd come to expect from a flat earth channel. No forests on Earth. What a dumbass. You do realise that rainforests are responsible for producing roughly 1/3 of the Earth's oxygen? Or is oxygen a hoax as well?
Here's another example of some mesas, and if you look at them with new eyes, they certainly do look like they could be the remains of giant petrified trees, because they even do break down the same way that wood does, that bark does.
So these rock formations are rotting from the inside out. Prove it. You can't just say something and then have no way of backing it up. And okay, these ones do kind of resemble tree stumps because of a thing called pareidolia.
So when we look at these things with new eyes, we need to realize that we might not be right on our first guess.
Guess? You can't guess what something is and then state it as fact. That's not how science works. You use the scientific method to collect measurable, empirical evidence in an experiment related to a hypothesis. So if your hypothesis is that these are giant trees, you'd be looking to prove that they're not giant trees. That's what science is for. Guessing is not part of the scientific method, unless of course you're a flat earther or a conspiracy theorist. Then there's a lot of guessing involved and as little scientific research as possible, because what conspiracy theorist wants to disprove their theory?
And that's what this is really all about. It's about exploring all of the possibilities and not automatically jumping into one idea and then kind of just pushing everything off to the side because you think that you already have it all figured out.
So don't do exactly what you're doing here then, because that is what you're doing. You're saying that these rock formations must be tree stumps because they look like tree stumps.
Because I at least know that I probably won't ever have any of this figured out. At least, not in my lifetime. I will not have this figured out.
Nobody will. In anyone's lifetime. And if they try to, they would just be wasting their time anyway, because we figured out what trees were quite a long time ago, and rocks.
This is the Colossus, and Roger Spur at Mud Fossil University has actually done an analysis of this, of the interior of this, and he has found that it is biological. I believe that he even found blood there. Some of the things that a lot of times we look at as that we look at and see as rust. Well, it is rust because of the iron, but he said that was actually dried blood.
So Roger went to Florence in Italy to do this analysis? Because if he didn't, then he hasn't analysed anything. And if by some miracle he did go to Italy, he's a liar, because it's well documented that the inside of the Colossus has rooms. So what exactly was he analysing? Where they had their scatter cushions? If the feng shui was good? Because I hate to break it to you, but pointing at a computer monitor with a feather doesn't count as analysis.
And so this is another thing that we can look into.
I see what you did there. You can look into it because there's a staircase leading to the inside of it. Very clever.
But again, it's just one of those things where sometimes this could be the case. And other times it doesn't mean that it is always going to be Titans or that it is always going to be ancient trees. And that's what I'm really trying to get across, because I have seen a lot of people who just, they are 100% for only one hypothesis. And maybe that's not really the best thing that we should be doing.
But most of the things you talk about don't need a hypothesis. We know what trees are, we know what rocks are, and how they're formed, so we don't need to hypothesize about any of these things.
So obviously, this is carved, or most people would look at this as carved, or as in Roger Spur's analysis, he believes that this actually was once a Titan.
Ooh, nice recovery. And as your statement just confirmed, you know that this is a statue that was man-made, or carved as you put it. But because Roger Spur says it... says it was once alive, then that's good enough for you and Roger's minions. Because obviously everyone else that says that the Colossus is a statue is wrong because you and Roger think it isn't, or wasn't, whatever. It's a statue.
So no one's going to look at this and say, well, that's a mountain, because it's clearly not a mountain. So if it was not carved, the only other choice would be if it were actually a Titan. And when I say Titans, I do have to say that it doesn't necessarily always mean like human-like Titans. There was a channel called Stellium. Is it Stellium 7? I'm sure that some of you will correct me because I actually do subscribe to it. I just can't remember the name of it. And actually did a series of videos about what looks to be a petrified elephant. Gigantic elephant, but an elephant nonetheless. So,
have you noticed that so far every single citation that she's given has been from another YouTube channel, and more importantly from another YouTube channel that believes exactly the same nonsense that she does?
And then here we have, this is not the one, I don't think this isn't the one that was in the Stellium 7 channel, but this is clearly, actually no, sorry, this is in Iceland, and this is clearly an elephant, or it certainly looks like an elephant.
So which is it? Clearly an elephant, as in that's what it is and you can provide evidence to show it is, or it certainly looks like an elephant, which is a very different thing. Which I agree, it does look like an elephant because of pareidolia. The only difference between somebody like me and somebody like you, and I don't mean you watching this, I didn't mean to point, I was very rude. I can look at it and say, cool, looks like an elephant. Isn't that amazing? But I know it isn't. Whereas people like Roger and this nutty woman, they look at it and say, yep, that's an elephant because it looks like an elephant. Case closed.
So here's another example of something that, we're told this is a cliff. But, and we're so many times told to write off what our first impression tells us. A lot of times we're made to feel that we're silly if we look at things and see things as they are. But have you ever thought to yourself that maybe that is really just to turn us off the path, and maybe we do really need to start trusting our eyes more often?
No, I've not thought that. Not even once.
So lastly, I just wanted to go into the melted buildings aspect of it, because a lot of people will tell you that mountains all come from melted buildings. And what I will say is that some mountains can come from melted buildings. I also believe that some mountains may have been ancient trees, some mountains may have been titans, and other mountains may have been what are called
mountains, because that's what they are, and it doesn't matter how you see them or what they may or may not resemble, they are still mountains, even after Roger's analysis, which his highly qualified assistant, Professor Featherington, helped him with.
But yeah, there really is evidence of melted buildings, melted castles. We don't know for sure what happened. Some people believe that it could have been a direct energy weapon. There certainly was some form of a catastrophe that would have caused this melting to happen.
Hang on a second, direct energy weapon? Would that be an ancient direct energy weapon? Because you've spent the whole video telling us about how old all these things are. And suddenly these ancient buildings have been melted by a direct energy weapon. I'm starting to get the impression that you're not being completely honest with us.
My whole point of this video today was just to help us to realize that sometimes we don't need to get so caught up in one idea and then we just completely forget about everything else that it could be. So this is, this is in Turkey, Cappadocia, Turkey. And yeah, now they will tell you that these were carved into the rock, but it certainly does look like it could have been melted.
No, it doesn't. Well, not unless you're a gullible idiot. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new and destroy the like button for me. Take care. See you next time. Bye.
All right, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blinder.